Morning, everyone. Okay, so this is the last day of the series on ritual and devotion. So we've been looking at the Sevenfold Puja. We've been looking at different aspects of ritual and devotion, and just to remind you of some of the things. So here's an image of there's a couple of Indian order members here. At the site of the Buddha's enlightenment. So this is the Mahabodhi temple at Bodh Gaya in India, and this is like a stone kind of fence around the Bodhi tree. So the Bodhi tree is the tree that the Buddha is supposed to gain enlightenment under, and here you can sort of see that. You can buy garlands of flowers outside of the temple, or plates of flowers. Really fantastic, offering a plate of chrysanthemums or something like that to the Buddha, and people would rub gold leaf into the stone, or other sites like where the cave at Vulture's Peak, where the Buddha is supposed to have spend time. It would all be kind of rubbed. There'd be gold leaf rubbed into the rock, things like that. So this is the sort of thing that we've been covering this week. The devotion and ritual, and then so today we're going to finish off with a little bit of theory around ritual and devotion, around imagination. So over the years, back in the early 2000s, I was kind of involved at the Manchester Buddhist Centre with designing shrines and putting on festivals and things, and then later on at Buddhafield. And I've got this rational side to myself, kind of need to understand it. I really, logical side often needs to understand things. So I kind of thought I tried to work out what some of the issues around imagination, ritual, symbolism, all this sort of thing, poetry, how it seemed a bit irrational or something, or but I thought, well, maybe is there a way of understanding it? So some of that's come out in this week, where I was talking about the bow and breaking the bow down into rational kind of steps. But I've kind of gone a bit further than that and come up with a complete theory about imagination, and it's based on this symbol. So this symbol is the Five Buddha Mandala. So there are five in Tibetan Buddhism. There's a system of five Buddhas. So the white Buddha Vairocana is in the centre of the mandala. So a mandala is an arrangement of forms, of archetypal forms, that is expressive of a kind of set of values, really. So, and then you've got Akshobhya in the east, and you've got Amitabha in the west, and you've got Ratnasambhava in the south, and you've got Amoghasiddhi in the north. And in Tibetan Buddhism, you enter into the mandala in the east, so you come in via Akshobhya, and then you go round, so you go to the south to Ratnasambhava, then you go to the west with Amitabha, you go to the north with Amoghasiddhi, and then you go to the middle. And in a way, it's a kind of a journey taking you through, I suppose, you could say, taking you through various qualities of enlightenment. So we're going to be doing this journey later on as I explore poetic logic. So how you can understand imagination as a means of transformation, how it works. Also, well, it can be a means of delusion. Actually, it can go both ways. Imagination can take us further towards enlightenment, or further towards happiness, towards bringing happiness to other people, or it can take us away from that if we're just distracted by fantasy. So I think it's really important to establish the parameters of all of this, and and it puts it on a solid foundation, that sort of thing. So that's what we'll be doing later on. So we've got a bit of a shorter session to start with, for 45 minutes. Before we're going to do a puja at 8:15 UK time in about 40 minutes on Zoom. So the details are on the Facebook page. Just click on the link and you get into Zoom. You need to download the Zoom app to start with. So this is the last one of the series, and tomorrow we're going to be moving on to Buddhist metaphysics and the middle way, those sorts of things, eternalism and middle way between eternalism on the one hand and nihilism on the other, and just kind of explore that. And I'll be using some of the material from my friend Sagramati, who's one of our top scholars in the movement. Things he's said, trying to share some of those, and okay. So we'll begin by a bit of physical warm up. So just check your hands out. Ouch. Ooh. And swing from side to side. We're just looking for the right sort of energy in our body. Just getting into a nice rhythm. Try to keep your spine as upright as you can. And allow your mind to be a bit lazy. And allow your mind to be carried along by your body. So we're looking for kind of arrow of conditionality to be going from the body up to your mind and emotions. So it's like looking for calming to come from the body, and stability to come from the body up into the mind, up into the emotions, reassurance. Rather than going in the other direction, which might be anxiety or something like that, going down into the body from the mind, making us tense up. So we're looking for using the body as a resource for our mind. And just then rotating your hips. And if you can, just lifting up one leg behind you, holding onto your ankle, just giving the front of your thigh, your left thigh, a bit of a stretch. And try to have a sense of your chest lifting, and your upper back lifting as well. And then the other side. So be sensitive to any injuries or physical conditions that you have when you're doing any sort of body work. Lifting up your chest, lifting the upper part of your back. just drumming on your skull, scalp, whatever it is. Have a yawn. And feeling the contact of your feet with the ground. And your clothes. How does it feel to be wearing clothes and to be, for your skin to be in contact with the air? And then just put your forehead in your hands and just curve your neck over a little bit. So you're turning away from the world, covering up your eyes. And just giving your head to your hands to be held. Maybe bend your knees slightly. And being aware of your breath on your wrists. Give your face a bit of a wash with your hands. Maybe even breathing into your hands, just enjoying the breathing in and out of the moisture in your breath. So we're trying to inhabit our physical experience. And then breathing on your chest, down your sides, and over the top there, get into your spine, upper part of your back, other side. And down. Brushing down your arms. Okay, and then taking a seat for meditation. So I thought what we could do for our meditation this morning is to do, given the topic, is to do a little visualisation of the Buddha. So just allowing yourself to settle into your new position. Being aware of the world, of the senses coming into your sense organs, just allow all that to just happen. Sights and sounds and touch sensations in your body, smells and taste, all the five senses just being there. And just imagine it all turns into electricity as it hits the sense organ and then moves down the nerves into the brain. It's just a natural process that we let happen. So we're receiving the world into a soft awareness. So we're just going to do a little 10-minute meditation here. So just allow all of that world of experience, phenomenal experience, to be there, but also to think, actually, what is the nature of that experience? Well, it's conditioned, so it appears when the conditions are right, things appear and disappear when the conditions are not there. And we can imagine that this is represented by a blue sky, like an electric blue sky, that just replaces the whole of the universe. So the universe is there on the one hand, and on the other hand, the universe is this electric blue sky, which is full of possibilities, full of potential for change. You know, things can arise when the conditions are right. It can be potential for change in all directions, positive change, negative change, depending on what we do. So the nature of reality is that it's fluid. So just imagining that the most vibrant blue sky that you can, electric blue sky. And then imagine that in the middle of that blue sky there appears a pile of grass. So the Buddha is said to have sat down on a pile of kusa grass as his meditation seat. Behind the pile of grass is a tree with heart-shaped leaves. Imagine maybe imagine the trees a little bit kind of symbolic, you know, a bit magical. The green is intense green. Imagine the tree that representing the whole idea that for growth to happen there has to be a downward movement into the earth, the roots going down, reaching for nourishment into what has decayed from other things, the soil. As things have rotted down, that becomes nourishment again for the tree. And it's also reaching up towards the sun. The two directions happening at the same time, both necessary, downward movement and the upward movement. And then just begin to imagine that sat on the grass is cross-legged in meditation posture is the Buddha. And he's wearing robes. Well, he's wearing robes made out of bits of cloth that have been found. So it's like they're called rag robes. So he's an ascetic, he just lived on whatever he could find, what was just cast-offs. But imagine that there's this kind of real, kind of serene radiance coming from his face, his body. It's just extremely still, extremely calm. He's gone beyond all worry about old age, sickness and death. But he's not indifferent to things, he's alive to things, he's alive to people. To their suffering, to their need for help. maybe calling to mind, recalling some of the verses about the Buddha from the Sutra of Golden Light, Puja. His body is the colour of gold, like the golden lord of mountains. He has all the marks of excellence. The virtues of a single Buddha can never be told. So just using our imagination to reach beyond the symbol of the Buddha into something that's way beyond that. The virtues of the Buddha can never be told. They are all-encompassing and without number. I'm trying to make our meditation a bit personal, so maybe to do that, maybe imagine how it feels to be with a friend who we feel we have something to learn from or appreciate. We really appreciate certain qualities and we just enjoy being in their presence because of those qualities. You know, maybe there's a maturity there or a calmness there or a emotional intelligence or something like that. So just imagining this with our friend. But then imagine what it must be like to be actually with the Buddha, whose qualities are supreme and without number. How we would feel in our body in that situation. So imagining some sort of effect coming from the Buddha to us. Maybe you might imagine some golden light pouring down from the Buddha and transforming our spirits, transforming our body, helping us move further towards enlightenment. Sitting with that golden light, as a gift from the Buddha, a blessing from the Buddha. And then just imagine that it begins to fade in intensity. And then It's just us sitting with the Buddha. And then the Buddha and the tree and the pile of grass just gradually merge back into the infinite blue sky, spreading in all directions. And the meditation comes to an end. So this is the Five Buddha Mandala, with Varochana in the middle there, and the other Buddhas around. So I was saying that we enter the mandala in the east, and then we go around to the south, then to the west, and to the north, and then to the middle. So this is a here we've got a symbol. We've got a composite symbol, and so it's appropriate. It's an appropriate vehicle really to talk about imagination. So with imagination, it's like we have this. Well, a lot of people think, oh, imagination, it's just like fantasy, and the Romantic poets kind of addressed this really and said, oh, actually no. Imagination can really lead you somewhere. It can lead you towards a better understanding of things. So like poetry, it does that, doesn't it? It engages your emotions, but it also brings in some aspect of reality, So often poetry has that double side. It has the aesthetic side, which gives you joy, and it has the more salutary side, which is maybe something about impermanence or something like that. So in a way, the aim of imagination, using imagination in Buddhism, is to help us come closer to enlightenment, to attain nirvana. And so this is so each of the Buddhas has various qualities. So we start off with Akshobhya. So the quality of Akshobhya is wisdom. So he holds the Vajra, which is the symbol of reality. So the first thing we need to do with imagination, anything to do with imagination, is we need to be wise about it. We need to be wise about what it is that we're doing, So the wisdom around imagination is to see poetry as poetry, not as something else. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is to see the poetic as the poetic. But with all of these. With all of the Buddhas here, we've got almost like a poison or something, or a down. What do they used to call it? A pitfall. There's a pitfall. So there's a pitfall with poetry, which is literalism. So it's like when we take something literally, it's not meant to be taken literally. Then the whole thing fails. We stop being able to. The imagination stops being helpful, and it becomes in a way, it becomes harmful. So, so if we think, oh, the Buddha didn't have a bump on his head or whatever kind of the symbol that we're focusing on, we're focusing on the symbol too much, rather than the reality beyond it. So the symbol is just a means to the reality beyond it. So if we take it literally, we say, oh, I don't really believe that, then we're blocking our access to the reality that it's trying to address. So literalism is the first pitfall, and poetry is the positive counterpart of it. So then, what happens is, having established ourselves in the right attitude, a wise attitude towards imagination, we then come to Ratnasambhava. So Ratnasambhava has the symbol of the jewel, and is associated with generosity and abundance. So we could say that the next thing that we need to do is to bring in a symbol. He represents the symbol. Bring in a symbol that is an appropriate symbol. So that's of a high value, high aesthetic value. So what happens here is aesthetics. So if we're looking at the Sistine Chapel roof, I mean, when I looked up at it when I went to Rome in 2008, and I looked up at that, I couldn't stop crying really, because it was so amazing, so powerful, So it's like with aesthetics, it's like we need to have a symbol that will take us somewhere, that will take our emotions. That's a powerful piece of art, rather than something that's not very powerful, not very engaging, not very aesthetic. So that's important. That's really important. So we've talked about aesthetics, haven't we? Creating a sacred space. Creating nice environment around us. When I talked about structure and organisation. Having a sense of beauty about things, that where we're putting the things of value in a space where they'll be seen. So an art gallery is like that, isn't it? You have a nice empty space, but it's aesthetic, and then you put your objects of contemplation within that to be, so that if you put a jumble, they used to in the old days put paintings in, like stacking them up the walls. Not very easy to just look at one. We've got loads of them there. So aesthetics is really important. So picking the symbol itself, which is a valuable symbol, and then what happens next is that we come to Amitabha, the Red Buddha. So Amitabha is associated in the Pure Land Buddhism with faith and meditation. So in meditation, we're kind of we're discriminating between what to pay attention to. Discriminating. He has a discriminating wisdom. So it's like what do we believe in? What do we put our faith in? So in this schema, the Poetic Logic schema, we could say that the next thing we need to do, once we've got this symbol or myth or story, it might be something that we either believe it or we don't believe it, So it has an effect whether we believe something or not. So I use the example here of like Father Christmas, that if you believe in Father Christmas, kids believe in Father Christmas, does that have a positive effect on their life or not? So that's the important thing, not whether it's true or not scientifically, because that's not the realm we're in here. We're in a different realm than science. We're in imagination, and so if we believe that, if we choose to believe a myth, choosing to believe the myth of Amitabha's 18th vow, that if we chant his mantra 10 times, that with great faith, that we're guaranteed to be reborn in his Pure Land at death. So it's like we can we can believe or not believe. It's up to us, you know. But it will have a consequence. So the opposite of that is skepticism, where, you know, we just, it might be that it is helpful, it would be helpful to believe that, but we don't allow ourselves to do that. So that it has a consequence, yeah. And then we've moved to Amog-Siddhi, who's the Buddha of action, is green in colour. And so action is, so we talked about ritual. So ritual is like symbolic action. And what comes up here, the pitfall that comes up here is superstition. So you know, when we do something, we do an action like devotion. You know, so we offer a stick of incense to the Buddha, or we might think in terms of some Tibetan Lama in a cave somewhere who just doing lots and lots of pujas all day long. And what they're doing is they're really connecting with some value, and the action is like the action of doing the puja is building up their connection more and more as they do more ritual. They do more ritual and all that sort of thing. So it's really helpful to do that ritual. But what is superstition? Well, superstition is when we do that. You know, we cross our fingers and hope for the best, or, you know, we're a football manager, we put on our favourite shirt to hoping that that'll help the team win. So religions can be superstitious, you know, and often the superstition is based on fear. So Amog-Siddhi is associated with fearlessness. He's got this gesture, fearlessness, and so we can fearlessly commit ourselves and be visible about our religion, you know, and not be bothered about what other people think, you know, that this is what we're doing. And, you know, so when you're doing a ritual, that fear can come up, you know, you can go, oh, blimey, what am I doing here? I'm offering, you know, what will people think if I offer this incense to the shrine and I'm new to Buddhism and things. So fear actually comes up with action. So yeah, and we overcome fear by doing actions. Fear fades with repetition, fear fades with prayer, fear fades with action, that sort of thing. But you know, when we're in a religion because we just want to belong to a group or something, or we're doing it out of fear, we're doing some ritual out of fear, then that's the downside. And so maybe this is what Richard Dawkins means when he's critical of religions. It's like he's talking about this side of religion where, you know, people are doing things out of fear rather than actual real commitment and that sort of thing. And then so the overall effect of all of this, of going round the mandala here, of taking all these in, you know, trying to be poetic rather than literal in our attitude, getting the highest value symbol and relating to that rather than low value symbol, and then choosing to believe in that symbol, that myth, and then acting in relationship to it, doing some ritual in relationship to it, then what happens is transformation. So Vairocana is teaching. He's got the teaching mudra, teaching hand gestures, and but you could say that he's not teaching in Buddhism. Is it really about transformation? It's about the guru disciple relationship. So coming into the intense white light of Vairocana's realm, he's the illuminator. So he's in the centre of the mandala, and it's like his wisdom is supreme wisdom. So it's like it's really hard to face that bright white light. But what happens is if we do bring ourselves into connection with through our imagination with these symbols, with enlightenment symbols, then they transform us. This process transforms us, you know. And it's like that with anything, you know, like where any positive aspects of the imagination, you know, you know, famous poets like Keats and so on, you know, they would, it's a, you know, there's always an element of kind of, there can be an element of like risk and terrible beauty, you know. There's that phrase, isn't there? The terrible beauty. So it's like, you know, we get transformed by a terrible beauty, or the pitfall is that with imagination is like delusion. So, you know, when we imagine that we're different, we're not. We imagine that we're some sort of superhero through watching superhero films, but we don't actually become anything like a superhero. We just become a couch potato, you know. Then that's delusion. That's, you know, so fantasy. There's a downside to imagination, which is that, you know, of fantasy. Yeah, we dream about things and it takes us further away from enlightenment, further away from bringing about happiness for ourselves and others. So this is the schema for poetic logic, so I think when you were doing something, when we're doing ritual and devotion, that sort of thing, it's like, so I talked earlier in an earlier session about poetry being a bit like play, or symbolism being a bit like play. So it's like we're playing that, being advanced bodhisattvas, being advanced Buddhists. When we're doing the puja, we're saying all this verse, which is like really, you know, can be quite extreme. You know, like as many atoms as there are in 1,000 million worlds. So many times I make a reverent salutation. It's like it's completely over the top. But the point is that not to take it literally, but to take it poetically. It's trying to point to something beyond itself. So we can try and bring all these and try and believe it, try and you know, use the beautiful highest value symbols. I mean, things like the Bodhicharyavatara poetry is like amazing high level aesthetics, you know, high level poetry. And then we do the actions, we do the devotion, we come into relationship with it through action, and that transforms us as well. So it's now just gone 8:15, so we'll move over to Zoom, and if you want to sign into Zoom, we'll do the 7-fold puja. Okay, thanks.